Good morning and good afternoon, and I must say good evening from wherever you are logged in. I am Rihanna Khan Parker, and I am based in Cape Town on the almost southernmost tip of Africa, and the director of the Women Leadership Academy, one of the organizations striving for parity. I'm also a member of a sister organization in South Africa called the South African Women Lawyers Association, or SAWLA. Today, I am honored to be your moderator for this session, namely Building Transnational Networks, brought to you by the International African Women in Law and the Cyrus R. Vance Center for International Justice. The International African Women in Law is a non-profit organization of a network of women legal professionals across Africa and the diaspora, dedicated to using the law as a tool for social change, with a key focus on research, advocacy, technical engagement, and development. The International African Women in Law, IAWL, enhances the capacity of women for social change. The Cyrus R. Vance Center for International Justice advances global justice by engaging lawyers across borders to support civil society, to drive an ethically active legal profession by providing legal representation to civil society organizations and human rights bodies around the world, in partnership with leading law firms on a pro bono basis, and, importantly, building capacity. I am really looking forward to engaging with all of you on a topic close to my heart. Many of you may be asking, what exactly is building transnational networks? What does that mean? Most human development challenges and their solutions often transcend territorial boundaries. It is important to forge collaboration between people and institutions across borders for business development and relationship building. Transnational networks create a very powerful front for women in law to acquire new knowledge and skills, to advance a cause or business, and create positive impact. This conversation brings together women lawyers, legal practitioners, to share their experiences on how they have connected across countries with other practitioners and stakeholders in the legal profession, and to advance business transactions, human rights, and other social goals. We have an esteemed panel of three. The first woman that we will be hearing from, and I'm going to run through them very quickly, is Augusta Massey. Augusta is a judge pro tem, a speaker, and a very published author. Also a managing attorney at Massey and Associates, a law firm in Las Vegas. She was recently honored as one of the top 100 lawyers for 3 consecutive years, and honored as one of 15 women in business and politics by the Urban Chamber of Commerce. Joining us from my continent, the continent of Africa, is Inosi Nyata, a partner at Sullivan & Cromwell LLP, co-head of the Global Project Finance and Development Practice, and coordinator of the Africa practice. Her LinkedIn page tells us and contains endorsements for cross-border transactions and securities regulation. Last but not least, all the way from Chile, we have Patricia Silberman, who is a partner at Kelly for 10 years and co-head of the Corporate Mergers and Acquisitions and Capital Markets Group. In addition, she focuses on corporate transactions, global finance, securities, capital markets, and international trade. This panel will explore the importance and impact of transnational networks and how to build and sustain successful transnational networks. However, before we do so, I would like to encourage participants to pop your questions in the question and answer box. Do not forget the tags for social media. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, your blogs. Also, feel free to tag the Institute for African Women in Law and the Allied Institution, and visit their pages and subscribe to their newsletter to keep abreast of their activities. The tags will appear in the chat box shortly. Now, I would like to get into our conversation for the day. My first question will go to Inosi. Inosi, can you share with us, how did you start building transnational alliances with other lawyers? Welcome. Let's welcome Inosi Inyata.
Thank
Inosi,
you.
over
Thanks,
to you.
Rihanna. And thank you for having us on this panel. It's always great to be able to talk to women really across the world, and it's fantastic to be able to have this webinar format to do that. So I grew up in Kenya. I did my first law degree in Kenya, and then I came to the US. I did a degree in New York and then in London, and ended up coming back to New York to work. But my work is really international, and I co-head our project finance group and do a lot of work in emerging markets really across the world, some in Africa, some in Latin America, some with Patricia's firm, some in Asia. And so I found that I have ended up in a place that is very transnational based on the path I took. And so, Rihanna, to your question, I think that one of the key things that has put me here in this place where a lot of what I do is transnational is really being in a situation where I have been in many different jurisdictions. I had the interest, right? So you have to have the interest if this is something that you're interested in. I think one of the ways to really start to establish these networks is to go somewhere else. It doesn't have to be a degree. It can be a course. It can be a secondment. It can involve, a training session. So find opportunities to connect with people in different jurisdictions, because just being able to sit down together with people to do some activity together really establishes great connections. And if you start that at whatever stage, you will see as you look back over the years that all of those connections that you've made in those situations grow your network further and further. And you start to get to a point where, one person you connect may know someone else that you connected with. And that establishes a network that you can call on, irrespective of the direction you go in your career. So I think that's one thing I would say. If you're interested in having a legal career that is transnational, find ways to go to different places, to sit down and work with people in different countries and build those personal networks, because there's nothing that beats actually being in person. Despite all the benefits of the webinars, being in person really establishes very strong connections. The other thing I would say is look for organizations that give you a platform to do more internationally. So one of the things I have done is work on the Vance Center. It is it's a committee of the New York City Bar Association, which is in itself in New York City, but it was established to do pro bono work with New York lawyers. And so it was a very great platform to be able to connect with lawyers who are here, but who are doing pro bono work around the world. And so through that, to connect with a lot of different people, like, for example, this particular webinar. And so there are organizations in each jurisdiction, I think you will find, that are themselves transnational, and if you plug into their networks, that expands your network. And I think, going back to what Rihanna said initially, pro bono, international justice, those are very usually transnational. And being able to work, I think, as a lawyer in that space, even if it's not your day-to-day practice area, like I am a corporate lawyer, but integrating pro bono into my work does give me even more exposure to the transnational space through the pro bono organizations that I am able to participate in. So I think those are two key ways that I have found that I've been able to create these networks as part of what I do. And I think those two ways don't really depend on what practice area you're in, right? You can plug into that, irrespective of your practice area, irrespective of the type of law you do, or not law. There are people, a lot of people who are lawyers but don't end up practicing in law. Both of those should be avenues that are available.
Thank you so much, Inosi, for that really such powerful tips there. So Inosi Inyata, for those who have just joined us, is a partner at Sullivan and Cromwell LLP. That is where she is. And that was so powerful. But I'm going to come back to you, Inosi. I have a question to ask to Patricia Silberman. Patricia, what is the value of building transnational networks?
Well, I think that the value is infinite. And you can see it from a professional perspective. I mean, we are all lawyers working in a globalized world. And as such, the fact that you can have like a transnational network allows you to serve your client needs. I mean, in our firms, my firm and Inosa's firm that are so international, and I guess that's the case for many of the panelists of the persons that are in the audience now, to be able to call upon trusted allies in a network when your client is in need of having some transnational advice is really invaluable. So it's not, there is an advantage of having a network already in place and not calling someone for a specific project, because as I said, relationships are built in trust and are built over time. So that's one advantage for sure. The fact that you have people that you trust on that can serve your client's needs in a specific matter. And it goes two ways, right? One way is that you can call upon the person that are in your network in order to serve your client needs, but also those persons that are in the same network will call you up when they are in need of having an advice from your jurisdiction. So it's actually a great source of referral. I have found that the fact of having a transnational network allows you to receive a lot of work from people that trust you because they already know you and they know that you are capable of taking the assignments of their clients. But I would say that it's not only professional, which might seem obvious. I think it's also personal. I mean, myself, like Inosi, I participate in many transnational networks. I am part of an initiative of the Vance Center that is called the Women in the Profession, the WIP, that have like local chapters in all around the world. And it's amazing how the fact of having like a network helps you. I mean, this is a profession that it's difficult for women. I'm not saying anything that it's new to anyone here. And having those networks have been like a great source of friendship for me. And one particular example, there is a network in which I participate in which you have lawyers from all around the world that it started as a WhatsApp, very simple, like people were joining from different jurisdictions. If I knew someone from a jurisdiction, I will integrate them to the WhatsApp. And it started as a WhatsApp with very simple questions, invitations to webinars, invitations to write newsletters on. But during the pandemics, it was a great source of support. I mean, we participated in some Zooms in which everyone was crying how difficult it was, like the pandemics and juggling all the matters that you have to juggle on. And what really struck me about that network is that at some point the war at Ukraine exploded, and we have two fellows from Ukraine that were in that network. And it was so great how everyone supported them, how everyone was touched upon their stories, how you can have like people that are doing the same thing like you, like lawyers working with kids and that were facing a war, that I think that the value is both. It's professional for sure, but the personal value is enormous. You really get to have like friends around the world.
Thank you so much, Patricia. That was loaded, and I say so specifically with regard to, I mean, we're still sort of coming out of the pandemic, but going back to when we were under a heavy lockdown, you're 100% correct. I think we used our professional networks to assist us with our personal circumstances. And it was simple things. How am I going to commission an affidavit if I'm not seeing the person physically? So yes, and I could, being here on the southernmost tip of Africa, could tap into my networks globally, because the pandemic came to us we were the last, really, amongst the last of the continents to be affected by the pandemic. So I could watch with the space internationally and say, look how it's moving there. That's what my peers are doing in country A and country B. Participants, that was Patricia Silberman, who is a partner at Cali for 10 years. And now we've heard a lot about, it's not just a professional network, it's also a personal network that one builds. We've heard from Inosi, where she had said that one must find a platform where one would be able to present oneself and be heard and taken and led. But now I would like to hear from Augusta. Augusta, I'd like to hear from you and to share with the listeners, what are the common challenges in belonging to a transnational network? So I'm looking for the common challenges here. And how did you overcome such challenges, if you had such challenges? Augusta, over to you.
Thank you so much, Rihanna, and that's a great question. I just want to say thank you to IAWL and Vance Center and to my fellow panelists for being here. So just a little bit of background. I was actually born in Nigeria, born and raised, and I have been in the US for quite a bit now, running my firm, and recently got an opportunity to go to the gaming board here in Las Vegas. So just wanted to put that out there. And to your question, I feel like there are challenges, but in those challenges lies opportunities, right, for us to grow and for us to learn in this space. So common challenges, I feel, are the same challenges we have when we want to expand our businesses, when we want to go international, when we want to go transnational. They're the same challenges. One of them being, I would say, language barriers, just understanding the language of the people that you're trying to network with globally. So it could be in Asia, it could be in Africa. And when I say language, even with Anglophone countries, there are nuances to that. So understanding those languages. An example that came to mind was Mercedes-Benz. When they entered into the market in China, I think, they called themselves Benzi, which meant like rush to die. And, then they had to change it to Benchi, which meant like, rushing as in quickly. So those little nuances and understanding that, the language might be a barrier, I think it's a challenge. Another challenge I see there is also cultural challenges. So besides the language, culture comes in, art and food and tradition and all of this nonverbal cues and body language that we don't necessarily get just based on webinars. So, to what Inosi said, being in person is so crucial to be able to see this. And to what Patricia said, having those personal networks, so you could ask those questions of your personal network, well, how does this work in your country? Like firm handshakes, okay? I think here in the US, we have that eye contact. We shake your hand firmly and you say that person is a confident person. I want to do business with that person. And then we'll say smile. And then in another place, like in Russia, like smiling too much, they're like, she is insincere. Why is she always smiling? And then in another place, like you're trying to do business, and in the US, we're like, go, go, go 24/7. Another country like Spain could be like, no, we're on siesta right now. So understanding those cultural barriers in the places that you're trying to network with people. So you kind of know when to send that email. You kind of know when to set that one-on-one meeting. You need to understand those cultural barriers. And then the last one I would say is a challenge would be just the lack of information or resources. I feel we're getting better as the world expands and opens up. I know this is not popular opinion, but I think the pandemic brought us closer in a way in closing up a lot of territorial gaps and just seeing that, we're all one and going through the same things. So being able to do your research about the countries that you're trying to network in, being able to find the right information online, utilizing technology and digital means to, communicate with people and start forging those relationships. I think you are able to overcome those challenges. And then beginning to use the tools that you have to network and reach out and branch out. I think, like Patricia said, start from your personal network, and then they might be able to give you referrals to other people who may be in law and other places that you may not otherwise have known. So to answer the second part of your question, how did I overcome such a challenge? I'll give you an example of a client that I had. And so this is my takeaway to people. I might not be in a big firm like Patricia or a partner like Inosi, but I feel like every single one of us is a brand. I call myself Augusta Massey Inc. because regardless of where I work, regardless of, what I do, my career is personal to me. So I'm a brand of myself. Starbucks is a brand. I'm an international brand. And I think if you start thinking yourself in that light, you start making the connections. What does a brand do, right? How do you market yourself? How do you approach things? So being that I'm an international brand, doing business, I did get a client, and I've had a few clients, mostly from China. And so for me to be able to do business with them, first it started from a personal friend who expanded or introduced me to other people and introduced me into the market. And so I had to lean on my personal network to help me with those challenges of culture and challenges of language. Okay, how do I say this? How do I approach this person? How do I show respect? How do I help them in this business? And then I had to lean onto international platforms that allowed me to connect with other lawyers in China. So the ABA has an international platform. I think it's a great place to get started if you are, so the American Bar Association, which is national, has its own committee for international lawyers. I'm also part of the National Bar Association, and they also have an international committee, which I volunteered for. So I started to build my network that way, and then I was able to get connected with lawyers on the ground in China who we could work together for the benefit of my clients. So that was just an example. I think mining your network, I think, making sure that you and your personal and professional network, and keeping the goal of serving your clients in mind, I think from there you spring forth. So thank you so much for that question.
Absolutely wonderful, Augusta Massey. I come from the Rainbow Nation in South Africa. We've got different cultures, races, different language groups here. And for us, yes, I like your point about challenges are opportunities to grow. That is Augusta Massey. And Augusta is a judge pro tem, and she's a managing attorney at Massey and Associates. Well, it's so power-packed. There's so many wonderful tips, and I've made a note, and we're probably going to go off with quite a comprehensive pack at the end of the day. And I'm looking forward for the Institute for African Women in Law in putting all those tips together for us, because they do the research so beautifully. However, before we go further, I thank everyone for placing their questions in the question and answer box. I will have a look at it shortly. But for now, I think let's just take a break and let's do a poll. And so I'm going to set aside about 2 minutes for us to just participate in that poll. And there are 3 questions, and I'm hoping that poll would be showing up on my screen. I don't see it yet. I bet it will be coming up pretty soon, but I do know that there are 3 questions that you're required to answer. So the first question will be, do most human development challenges and their solutions transcend territorial boundaries? That's a lovely question. And there's 3 options, A, B, or C, yes, no, or not sure. Please participate. Your feedback on this poll is very important for us. The second one is, do most human development challenges, the second one is, transnational networks are a powerful means for women in law to increase their capacity for positive impact. 4 options there, actually 5 options. Strongly agree to strongly disagree. And then the third question, does collaboration between people and institutions across borders build businesses and relationships? You've got 3 options there, yes, no, or not sure. Come on, let me see your answers. Giving you a few minutes, probably just one more minute to do that. And host and panelists can't vote, so I can't vote on this. What a pity. I'll hold all my thoughts though. Oh my goodness me. Yes, on that very first question, do most human development challenges and their solutions transcend territorial boundaries? It was a resounding 85% yes. There was a 0% for no, and there was a very short percentage for not sure. The second question, transnational networks are a powerful means for women in law to increase their capacity for positive impact. And 78% of you strongly agree. That's absolutely wonderful. I'm just looking for the last question, and I can't see the last question on my screen. Let me just see if I can see it. If not, if somebody could please just help me prompt the third question with regard to what the results were on the third question. The third question was, does collaboration between people and institutions across borders build businesses and relationships? And it says yes. Oh, I can't see the results, but I'll come back to it if I find it. I'm trying to check my chat box for what the results were on that. Can't find it at this point in time.
I think it was 100%. 100%.
Was it 100%? Well done. Then we are on the right track. I'm so glad that I didn't see that result, because just hearing that, see that it's 100% excites me that we are on a very valuable topic. I now come to just remind participants again to please, and you're encouraged to pop your questions in the question and answer box. Do not forget the tags, please, for social media, whether it's on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or your personal blogs. Do not forget to tag both the Institute for African Women in Law as well as the Vance Center. Tags have been posted in the chat box. I see it there. And also feel free to tag and also subscribe to the newsletter of the Institute of African Women in Law. There's also a lovely survey I saw on their pages, which I encourage all and everyone to participate in. There's the tags all up. Follow us to keep up with the Institute for African Women in Law. It's there. You can take a screenshot and then save it for later. For now, let's get back to our lovely panel. You've got us so excited with this topic, as I said, which is very close to my heart. And I'd like to come back to you, Inosi. Inosi, are there areas of law or practice that lend themselves better to transnational networks, or is this applicable to each and every aspect or industry of law?
I was thinking through this question earlier, and I started to think about what areas don't lend themselves to a transnational network. And every time I thought of an area of law, I then thought of a way that you could make it transnational. So, I think in a way, sort of a couple of overarching points. One, it depends a little bit on your jurisdiction, right? And what is happening in your jurisdiction, because some countries are more placed as a center of international work, right? New York, it has developed over the years to be the center of finance. So things come through here. So just the fact that I'm practicing here puts me in that position. Other countries, it may not be finance, it may be something else. And so a little bit depends on where you are. And you might sort of look at, if this is an area of interest, look at what's available and what's happening in your country. What's the economy? Is it a hub for international organizations? Is it, a place where there's a lot of natural resources, right? Those are areas that bring people from different jurisdictions. So, examine where you are, and you could probably find out, like, where is there more transactions, interaction that's international than not. But the other thing is that even if you're in an area that is not transnational, and actually, if I can, I will address the question in the chat, because I thought it was a really good one about being on the bench, right? You might think, well, if you're a judge, you're sort of in the one place, you're hearing cases from that place, you're a little bit stuck in the jurisdiction, but the ability to do things that are outside of that particular profession, right? Like participate in this webinar, participate in international organizations, participate in pro bono. The IBA was mentioned, the International Bar Association. I'm on the Women's Law Committee. It's a fantastic group of women, literally from around the world, who come together to discuss women's issues. There was a conference just about a week ago with the IBA, with women, from Africa, Asia, Latin America, and they were talking about kind of breaking through professions that are very male dominated and how we do that. It was very dynamic, and it had nothing to do with where the individual practice of the lawyer. It had to do with kind of common themes and goals. There was a woman from Estonia, for example, who said how challenging it was for her to be in a jurisdiction where it was very male dominated in industry, and everyone was chipping in to give her advice. There was a woman from Nigeria who recommended a book to her. So even if you're in a profession that is jurisdictionally based, I think there are ways you can transcend that by looking for organizations that do touch on transnational matters, and you will find that there's a lot of commonality of the issues that are being dealt with by women in all of these professions. Like there's a lot of similarities that come out because, we're all trying in many cases to break through into a world that wasn't necessarily set up to accommodate women as much. Some countries are way ahead of others, but and frankly, the US is, I don't think we're one of the not way ahead ones. So we learn from others as well. And so there are ways, even if you're not in a jurisdiction that, not in a practice that necessarily lends itself to transnational cooperation, you can find ways to find those opportunities outside through other organizations.
Yeah, if I may add to what
yes, oh sure,
said.
sure, Patricia, you may go ahead.
I think that I totally agree. Obviously, there are some areas of law that are more obvious than others in order to build transnational networks. I mean, especially if you work in cross-border transactions in the corporate side or in the finance side or in the capital market side, that's a natural because you are usually working in globally coordinated deals. But I have found the same thing that Ignacy said. I mean, I participate in networks of women. And then, as I said, there are issues that are common to women that occur in every aspect of the law. And also, I think that even if you are, like, for example, working in a regulator that is seen very locally, because regulators also can benefit from talking about themselves. Judges can benefit from talking about like themselves, about how the judiciary is driven in other countries. So I think that in a world that is so globalized, in which everyone is looking at other jurisdictions in order to shape up their jurisdictions, I see value in building transnational networks in every area of the profession.
That's wonderful. The world is so globalized, she says. Augusta, I see your hand is up. Would you like to contribute to the conversation?
Yes, please. So thank you for that. And just to answer the question, being, from the bench, that I feel is, I feel like there needs to be this honesty and candor, right, between the bar and the bench. And there's a popular saying that the bench and the bar, they're both sides of the chariots of justice. And I feel like things don't go wrong, they start wrong. If you start from the mindset of I need to be isolated or I cannot engage because I'm here and I'm on the bench, I think you then restrict yourself from other ways that you can actually engage. One of the ways that I feel like I stay transnational or I try to keep in the bench is by mentoring upcoming attorneys. So I'm still part of the bench in a way, and I'm building the next generation. I'm building those relationships, which I feel like you can create your own network in that way too, by helping others who are coming behind you. And you just never know where they end up. I've had mentees now who have ended up in different places who relationships or building relationships open me up to even a larger network. So just think about other ways that you can still engage. And I feel like as long as you're candid and you're open, and I would say in court, like, I just had lunch with this person, like, I just had such and such, so that I'm very open and transparent about that. But I'm also very fair in the rulings that I do make. And so I think as long as you're transparent, you're open, you're honest with those relationships, I think you can still stay a part of the bench and be in the bar.
That's wonderful, Augusta. I like, the concept of mentoring younger people and in a way then creating a network which is beyond one's imagination. I love that response. Thank you so much. I'd like to come back to you, Patricia, all the way from Chile. Patricia, drawing from your experience, what strategies would you share with women lawyers who aspire to belong to a transnational network or to build global alliances?
Yeah, and before getting into that question, just to add a small thing about mentoring, I remember participating in a mentoring program that was transnational, and that's a great idea that you can put up. I mean, partners from different firms around the world with mentees from different parts around the world, and you pair up differently, and that's a very nice way to build a network, but also to help the young generation to achieve leadership positions. So I take that. So in terms of strategies, I would say that the first thing is that you have to take the opportunity. I mean, we as women, and I guess lawyers in general, are so busy that sometimes it's very tempting to say no to some opportunities. But in order to build those networks, you have to take the opportunities. You have to speak in webinars like this one. You have to write that newsletter. You have to go to those trips. I mean, I'm also part of the IBA, and it has been amazing how useful has been to travel and to meet people in other parts of the world outside your jurisdiction, when everyone is in the mood of building networks. So I guess that you have to take the opportunities even if you are very busy. And also you have to devote time. It's not that you join a network and you don't do anything. I mean, if you are part of a network, you have to really work for make that network work. So it's not only devoting time, but you have to devote quality time and do things seriously. But when I say taking the opportunities, obviously I'm not meaning to participate in everything. That's impossible. So you have to be selective. I mean, choose a network that is a good fit for you, that is a good fit either for industry or either because of the area of law that you're practicing, or either because, I mean, you are a woman and you want to build that network stronger. So you have to be selective. And the other thing that I would say is that be natural. I mean, this is a profession of human beings. So it's not a matter of building a network because you are thinking that someone will give you something. Think about it from the perspective of you contributing to the network. I mean, people are more likely to build relationships with people that are givers than takers. So I would say that think about it from the mindset of what can I contribute rather than what I can take from. And as I said at the beginning, do it from a personal approach. I mean, this is a profession of people, that it's centered at people. So you have to be natural and build relationships that are comfortable from a human perspective.
Thank you, Patricia. That was also a powerful list. It's almost as if you were summing up what I'm supposed to sum up in the conclusion. But yes, collectively, just listening to the points, very, very powerful. And I've jotted down from all three of the panelists some tips that I've certainly gained here. I have, however, I see Inosi. I'm not sure if it's a legacy hand or if it's a new hand, Inosi.
New hand. If I just wanted to add, I agree with
Definitely.
I agree with everything Patricia said. I just wanted to add 2 points that are sort of specific, partly to women and partly to people who are coming up or in countries that are more developing countries. The 2 points are: your view is valuable and your view is very appreciated. And I think this is particularly for women. There's sometimes a feeling that maybe I'm not so sure, maybe I'm like 90% sure, not 100% sure, so I'm not going to say anything. Please say what's on your mind, because you will have fantastic ideas that actually are sometimes much better than the ideas that are being floated by the people who are speaking. And so please do participate. As Patricia said, your input is essential and could be transformative to whatever organization that you're in, even if it's not something that you may necessarily have thought that you could participate in. There's a lot of value, and we see this every day with people coming in from completely different perspectives, you bring, a really refreshing perspective and insight that people who've been doing it over and over may not necessarily have. I just wanted to add that.
Oh, no, absolutely, Inosi. I mean, personally, I agree with you 100% on that. So, South Africa is part of the BRICS member states, which is Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And when it held its BRICS Law Summit in South Africa in 2018, I noticed the absence of women in the room at that law summit. And I expressed my view and I said, there's something wrong here because there's inter-trade agreement between these countries. And where are the women lawyers? And that catapulted a view, which very few, by the way, when I planted the seed that we need to tease out the women lawyers in South Africa, some said, why do you want to do it for women? Do it for men and women. I said, no, we're going to do it for women alone. So yes, so I fully agree that your view is valuable, and when you've got a good challenge on your hands and you're wanting to take that challenge, just go and do it. Thank you so much for that. However, I need 3 takeaway points for maintaining a successful transnational network. I know that you might have touched on it now in your responses already, but if we can just briefly, each of you, and I'm going to start with Inosi, seeing that you were last on the screen now, if I could just perhaps ask you 3 takeaway points for maintaining a successful transnational network.
I think a lot of it has been covered in what we've said, but I think it's the reaching out, right? Continuing to maintain outreach. It can be small, sending an email to someone, when something happens in a particular country and you remember, oh, I know I worked with this person in this country, they had a flood or they had a hurricane, or it could be good news. It doesn't always have to be bad news, right? Something good happened, like reach out, maintain those networks. That's always very good, just to maintain those touch points. Having the ability to go to the place to really understand the culture. I agree with Augusta very much that if you want to sustain a relationship and successfully interact with people in particular jurisdictions, it is important to understand the cultural nuances, and that can take a while to absorb, because we all come from different places, and the being able to recognize that also helps you really sustain those relationships. So that I would leave you with that. I know Augusta and Patricia will have a lot of good suggestions as well, but those are things that are important. And joining this webinar is great, right? Doing things like that, going out and listening to what other people have to say and maintaining those networks. So well done to all of you for joining this.
Absolutely. Just the fact that you are on a platform such as this shows that you are interested in networking globally. Augusta, I saw that you were itching there. Augusta, were you itching to contribute?
Wasn't itching, but I'm happy to join. So I guess mine, I would say, would be when it comes to building your transnational networks, I will focus on quality over quantity. I will focus on really sitting down and drill into what are my core values. So I'm connecting with people who have the same core values. What is my end goal? Is it a subject area that I'm interested in? Is it more jurisdictional? I will really get clear on that, and then I will focus on building quality relationships from there. The second thing I would say is be really intentional, and being intentional is, again, knowing what areas you're trying to do and reaching out to the right people, and not spending your energies on fruitless relationships. And I'm not trying to say, be transactional about this. I'm saying that we're human beings, we have limited time, and it's best to use your time, in a good, targeted way. The other thing I would suggest too would be to treat people with respect. You'd never know where you're going to meet someone. So you reach out to someone and they were busy, give them grace. They didn't respond to you in 2 seconds, give them grace and treat them with respect. That is not the time to get out your keyboard and become a keyboard warrior and type that nasty email to a fellow woman or man who you're trying to network with. So treat people with respect. And just as a bonus, I would say, do not abuse people people's network credit. And what do I mean by that? If someone introduces you to someone else, please do not abuse that relationship. That is their network credit. Your network is your net worth. So someone has opened up their network, their net worth to you. Do not abuse that. Show up on time for that meeting, respond to the email when you get an introduction. Just treat people with respect, don't abuse it, and then just be a good human. Like, just have character, have integrity, be transparent, be honest with people, be honest with yourself and what it is you want from people. And so those would be some of the takeaways that I would say.
Absolutely, Augusta. Well said. Be honest, be transparent, be respectful, build bridges, treat people with respect. Absolutely. Before I come to the last panelist, and that is Patricia. Sorry. Oh, gosh, where's the name? Sorry, bear with me because I've opened the chat. Patricia, before I get to you, I just want the panelists to, there's a question in the chat, in the question and answer box. It says, as a young lawyer, how do you demonstrate your potential for a possible collaboration with experts in similar areas of work? Are there legal journals for this purpose? Panelists, think about that. Meanwhile, I just want to get Patricia's take on that last question. Give the audience 3 takeaways for maintaining a successful transnational network. Patricia?
Well, I think I might repeat myself or repeat what others have said, but just to summarize, I would say that invest time and effort, and I agree with Augusta, invest quality time and be selective on because you cannot do everything. So do small things, but do them well. Invest time and professionalism. Even if it's a professional tool, I mean, we are speaking about networks from a professional point of view. Think about it as human connections. And I agree with my fellow panelists. Think about that we are talking about persons here. So connections need to be human and need to be treated with respect and with care. I mean, I totally agree with Inosi. Sometimes it's not a matter of work. It's a matter of maybe the person is having a hard time in the jurisdiction in which she is on, and it would be so nice to hear from someone that cares about you. So think about it from a personal perspective. And also, as I said before, think about more what you can give instead of what you can get. At the end of the day, if you contribute, you will receive back, because that's how relationships are built. This is a trust relationship at the end of the day, so you have to build it over time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Invest time and effort. That is what she says. Over to the question again in the question box by Sukai Bangura. As a young lawyer, how do you demonstrate your potential for a possible collaboration with experts in similar areas of work? Are there legal journals for this purpose? Who would like to answer that?
I'm happy to answer that. And I think what Patricia said right now is the answer, right? There are, if someone is an expert in an area, first, they're busy people. They are being bombarded with a lot of people coming to them for things. Many people are asking them for things, right? We want your expertise. We want you to participate. Find a way where you can invest. If you want to learn from that person, find a way where you can give in order to get. So can you volunteer to help them write a paper? Can you volunteer to do research for them? You'll be amazed by how much you get out of a situation where you started with giving. And so I think, Patricia's words are very salient here and important. Think about it as a two-way street, because you actually end up getting a lot more when you put some effort and energy into it, and you get a significant amount of appreciation because you show the person who you're approaching that you're also willing to invest.
Thank you, Inose. Thank you. I see I have Augusta. We're drawing to the end of our webinar. Augusta, would you like to respond?
Yes, and so just to add on to what Patricia and Inosi have said, I would say, yes, identify a mentor and find how you can contribute to them. But I will also say, find a platform and join one. We've mentioned the ABA, the IBA, whatever transnational organization that you have in your jurisdiction. I say join that platform and give of your time. I think you demonstrate to the other people in that platform that this is a person who is hardworking, has ethics, and possibly they might reach out to you for collaboration. And then lastly, to my point of, again, I'm Augusta Massey Inc. I control my own intellectual property. You control your own intellectual property. So be out there in these internet streets, on your LinkedIn, write articles, publish those articles to your LinkedIn, put thought, time, and research into that. I have reached out to people because of what I read on their pages and their articles and said, hey, can I work with you? Because they demonstrated a level of interest or expertise or trying to grow in a particular area. So utilize what you do have right now. And I think, to the question about journals, I believe Florida State University has like the Journal of Transnational Policy and Law. So a quick research online might be able to identify places where you can publish your intellectual research. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that response, Augusta. And I hope that the question has been sufficiently answered. If not, feel free to pose another question. As we draw to a close, I'm just reminding all the participants that please tag African Women in Law. The tags and the website is in the chat box on the webinar chat. Please feel free to tag us, tag the webinar, tag the Institute for African Women in Law, tag the Vance Center, tag the panelists as well. And there's been wonderful taglines here today, and I hope that you've managed to catch some of them. But for me, it was very important to hold this transnational network of creating opportunities. Because if I look at myself sitting down here at the southernmost tip in Africa, and I heard you, Augusta, that you said it depends where you are situated, and certain jurisdictions might lend itself much more readily to be able to do transnational networking much more easier. But I mean, Cape Town, South Africa, Johannesburg is known to be the gateway to the rest of Africa, and we're part of the African Union. And I would like to see, especially for those participants that's on the platform today, to see us connect greater with our women in law on the African continent. And it's wonderful to do it through the IAWL, because that in itself creates that networking opportunities. They come out with absolutely wonderful research, and I follow the trends. I can easily at my fingertips know exactly what's the percentage of the representation of women in the judiciary in Africa, in South Africa, versus the rest of the world. So I'm hoping that this opportunity would present itself. I'm also hoping that one would also remove the silos that are created in professional organizations. So we've got the IBA, we've got the ABA, we've got the South African Women Lawyers Association, we have WASA, we have WILA, and we have TAWLA, and we have so many throughout the world, but we need to be able to transcend those silos and blend our professional bonds. However, in conclusion, there were so many valuable points, but what was key across, I think, each and every panelist that was present was the networking. What I loved about what they had said was, don't just take, but also give. And I think that is important. So if you're wanting to expand your business or expand your practice, ensure that you build relationships with people throughout the world. Think outside your country. And I think that is what I think both WASA, what WILA and SAWLA is doing in South Africa. We've built a relationship beyond South Africa. We've gone into Africa. We've gone into the SADC region, which is the South African Development Country Zone. And of course, we are now hoping to do further business with the rest of Africa and the rest of the world. Important points that I need to bring is to invest your time, connect with the right platforms, write an article, build personal networks, find opportunities to connect with others, such as this opportunity. Look at organizations that will give you a platform. The IAWL and the Vance Center is definitely one of them. Find ways to do pro bono work. and we do know what the values and what the Vance Center stands for. Take the opportunities, mentor others, came out quite closely, and in such a way you will build a brand of your own. Augusta, what did you say? Be your own brand? Absolutely. Never mind if you are just a single legal practitioner or whether you belong to a multinational practice. Be your brand. Find opportunities to grow. Be aware of the cultural nuances in different countries. Certain countries don't shake hands, they would bow and so forth. And serve clients' needs always first. Be honest and be one of integrity. That then has brought me almost to the close of this wonderful, wonderful platform. And I'm certainly very grateful to our panelists for having joined us today. Again, for the roundup, I say thank you to Augusta Massey, Managing Attorney at Massey and Associates, to Inosi Inyata, a partner at Sullivan and Cromwell, and to Patricia Silberman, all the way from Chile. You know, that's very far from South Africa, so I have to specifically mention that as such. A partner at Carey for 10 years. And then, of course, we need to say thank you to our wonderful audience, the participants, and especially, of course, those that brought us together. The Institute, as the International African Women, sorry, the Institute for African Women in Law, and the Cyrus R. Vance Center for International Justice. However, participants, without you, we could not have done this. Please do check the websites for both organizations. There's still a lovely survey going on the IAWL. Please complete it because they rely on your feedback so that I down south, right here at the southernmost tip of Africa, can know what everyone else is up to in the rest of the world. So that is it then from me. I think everyone has certainly, I have certainly gained strategic insight into how to build networks that transcend national borders for career and business success. I hope you too have gained some valuable tips. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.